She sat there in silence, still wearing her practice gear, eyes locked on the court where, just hours ago, she had walked off with her head held high but her heart quietly broken. Ayala, 24 years old, the Filipina sensation who had stunned the tennis world just days earlier in Berlin, was sitting in the players' lounge of the Bad Homburg Tennis Club, watching the woman who had just beaten her prepare to face one of the greatest players of her generation. And what happened next on that floodlit grass court in northern Germany was something Ayala, and frankly everyone watching, was completely unprepared for. But to understand why this moment hit so hard, you have to go back 48 hours, because the story of that night in Bad Homburg doesn't start with Naomi Osaka. It starts with a wild card from the Philippines who walked into Berlin like she had nothing to lose and walked out having shaken the entire women's game. Just days before that quiet evening in the players' lounge, Ayala was nobody's pick for anything. She arrived at the Berlin Open as a wild card, ranked 35th in the world, not a name on anyone's radar, not a player anyone was building brackets around. And then she started playing. She dismantled a former world number 3. She took apart a Queen's Club champion who was on one of the hottest streaks on tour. And then, in the kind of match that makes you sit up and grab your phone to check if you're watching the right feed, she beat Eala, the world number 2, in straight sets. Just like that, Ayala climbed 5 spots in the rankings, from 35 to 30, and became the first Filipino player in the history of the sport to earn a seeding at a Grand Slam. Let that sink in for a second. The first ever. In 1 week, in one city, a 24-year-old from Manila had done something no Filipino tennis player had ever done before. The tennis world was buzzing. Social media was losing its mind. People were calling her a Cinderella story, and honestly, it wasn't even a stretch. But then she arrived in Bad Homburg, and Elise Mertens was waiting. Now, Elise Mertens is not a flashy player. She won't make the highlight reels the way Osaka does with a 120-mile-per-hour serve or the way Coco Gauff does with a cross-court backhand that seems to defy geometry. What Mertens does is something far more difficult to deal with. She's precise. Impossibly, infuriatingly precise. She has spent 15 years on the WTA Tour developing the kind of game that doesn't give you anything to work with. She doesn't overpower you. She just keeps redirecting everything you send her way, putting the ball exactly where she wants it, and waiting for you to make a mistake. She was ranked 24th in the world going into Bad Homburg, and she had beaten Ayala twice before, once in Monatir and once in Madrid. And from the very first game of their first-round match, it was clear that a third victory was coming. Ayala never really had a foothold in it. The movement that had looked so fluid and free in Berlin, the quick changes of direction, the lefty angles that had stretched Ryapina all over the court, none of it seemed to work against Mertens. The Belgian had clearly done her homework. Every time Ayala tried to open up the court, Mertens was already there, redirecting the ball back with surgical calm. The first set went 6-3 in 32 minutes. The second set felt like it might go differently when Ayala broke back to level at 3-3, and for a moment, just a brief, tantalizing moment, it looked like she might find something. But Mertens closed it out without blinking. 3 games in a row, 6-3 again, and it was done in an hour and 24 minutes. 3 wins from 3 against Ayala. Mertens walked off the court without a scratch. And Ayala, instead of heading back to her hotel, instead of calling her coach and starting the mental reset process for Wimbledon, did something that tells you a lot about who she is. She went to the players' lounge and she sat down to watch what came next. Because Mertens wasn't done for the evening. Coming through the other side of the draw, fresh off a dominant 6-4, 6-1 win over Magdalena Fret in the first round, was Naomi Osaka. 4 Grand Slam titles. Former world number 1. One of the most powerful and polarizing players in the history of women's tennis. A player who had taken a break from the sport to have her first child, come back with the Auckland title in her pocket, and was slowly, deliberately climbing back toward the top of the game. The grass season, more specifically Wimbledon, had always been a complicated surface for Osaka. Her game is built for hard courts, for the kind of conditions where her flat, heavy ground strokes come back up into the strike zone and her serve can dictate from the very first shot. On grass, the ball stays low, the points are faster, and the margins shrink even further. But she had won Wimbledon once, back in 2021, and the memory of that title was clearly still alive in her somewhere. She had come to Bad Homburg with an agenda, and that agenda involved sending a message before the fortnight at the All England Club even began. The 2 players had played 7 times before. Osaka led the head-to-head 4-3, but Mertens had won their most recent match, a 3-set battle in Toronto that went 6-4, 3-6, something that had clearly stayed with both players. On grass specifically, they had played once, at Wimbledon in 2022, and Osaka had been clinical, winning 6-3, 6-2. That was 4 years ago though, and both of them had changed enormously since then. Mertens had only gotten sharper, adding wins to her record across all surfaces and cementing herself as one of the most dependable players in the top 25. Osaka had been through a journey that transcended tennis entirely, navigating mental health struggles, the pressures of fame, a pregnancy, motherhood, and then the incredibly difficult task of coming back and reclaiming a version of herself on a court where everyone was watching and waiting to see if she still had it. She still had it. The floodlights were blazing against the darkening German sky when the two of them walked out onto center court. 5,000 people in the stands, a sea of noise and color and expectation. Japanese flags next to Belgian ones. The crowd chanting both names, creating that particular kind of electricity you only get when two legitimate tennis players who genuinely don't like losing are about to play each other. Ayala, still in her practice clothes, her match bag probably still half-packed nearby, leaned forward in her seat and fixed her eyes on the court. She had come here to understand the player who had beaten her. She had come to study the wall. What she watched instead was the wall get taken apart, brick by brick, in a way that left everyone in that player's lounge temporarily unable to speak. From the first game, Osaka was in a different mode. Not the careful, measured Osaka who sometimes eases herself into matches. Not the Osaka who can sometimes look tentative in the early stages when the conditions are unfamiliar. This was Osaka with the volume turned all the way up from the very first point. Her serve was immediately a weapon of a different caliber. First serve percentages, sure, those are numbers on a screen, but when you're standing on the other side of that net and watching a ball kick to your backhand at 120 miles an hour, the numbers don't quite capture the reality. Mertens, who had spent 63 games across 2 sets dictating every rally against Ayala, was suddenly the one who couldn't get comfortable. Osaka broke in the very first game. She wasn't just hitting the ball harder than Mertens was used to, she was taking time away from her, striking the ball earlier, flatter, deeper, pulling Mertens wide and then cutting back to the open court before the Belgian could reset. Mertens, to her credit, didn't fold. She never folds. That's actually one of the most impressive things about her. She broke back, held, found herself back in the match, tried to impose her rhythm. But Osaka had a response ready every single time. Every time Mertens tried to slow the point down, Osaka found a way to accelerate it. Every time the Belgian tried to redirect, Osaka changed direction first. It was like watching someone try to stop a river by rearranging stones. The river just goes around. The first set went to Osaka 6-2, and the crowd, which had arrived expecting a battle, was starting to sense something special. The second set was closer on paper, 6-3, but the score doesn't tell the whole story. Mertens won. Games in the second set, yes, but she never really threatened to turn the match around. Osaka was serving 8 aces across the match and winning 78% of her first serve points. She was converting 5 of her 7 break point chances. Those are numbers that speak to a level of control and aggression that very few players can sustain in a single match, let alone maintain from the opening game to the final point. That final point was its own kind of exclamation mark. Osaka drove a forehand winner down the line, the kind of shot where you can hear the crowd react before the ball even lands, and it kissed the sideline with the kind of precision you usually associate with Mertens herself. The Belgians' racket dropped. The scoreboard read 6-2, 6-3. 1 hour and 18 minutes. The woman who had just spent 63 minutes systematically dismantling Ayala had now been systematically dismantled herself, in less time, with barely a foothold in the match. And in the players' lounge, Ayala sat there and let it all wash over her. The disbelief on her face in those first few minutes after the final point was completely genuine. She had watched Mertens beat her and walked away thinking, okay, she's better than me right now, I need to figure out why. She had sat down expecting to watch a competitive match, a grinding baseline battle, the kind of 3-setter you might get when two players who know each other this well go head-to-head on a surface where neither has a massive advantage. She had not sat down expecting to watch Mertens get dominated. But here's the thing about what Ayala did next, and this is the part of the story that doesn't get talked about enough, because it's easier to lead with the drama of the scoreline. She didn't just watch the match. She studied it. She processed it. Her expression, according to people who were in that lounge that evening, shifted sometime around the second set from stunned disbelief to something quieter, something that looked more like understanding. She was watching Osaka do the exact thing she hadn't done herself. Osaka hadn't been passive. She hadn't let Mertens dictate the tempo. She hadn't played safe, hadn't flinched, hadn't tried to outpersist the Belgian at her own game. She had gone directly at her, taken time away from her, refused to let her settle, and trusted the power in her own racket to be the deciding factor. Ayala had done the opposite of all of that in their match. She had been too cautious, too reactive. She had tried to construct points carefully instead of attacking them. She had given Mertens exactly the kind of match Mertens loves to play, a slow-building, technical chess match where precision eventually wins over power, and she had paid for it. Watching Osaka play was like watching someone flip the script in real time. A reporter caught up with Ayala later that evening, after the crowd had filtered out and the lights on center court had finally dimmed, and asked her what she made of what she had just seen. And her answer was honest in a way that a lot of players wouldn't be, because a lot of players in her position, fresh off a loss to the same opponent who just got beaten, would either say something diplomatic or something bitter. Ayala said neither of those things. She said Naomi played incredible tennis. She showed me what I need to do next time, not just against Elise, against everyone. And then she paused for a second, her eyes still drifting back toward the empty court through the window, and she added something that has stuck with me ever since I heard it. She said, "I learned more from watching that match than I did from playing mine." That's not the quote of someone who is defeated. That's not the quote of someone who is done. That's the quote of someone who is still hungry, who is still learning, who has just received the most expensive lesson imaginable and decided to keep the receipt. Think about what she's absorbed in 72 hours. She won 3 matches in Berlin against increasingly high-quality opponents. She earned a seeding at a Grand Slam. She lost a match in straight sets to a player who has now beaten her 3 times. And then she sat in a room and watched that same player get outplayed by a 4-time Grand Slam champion using a game plan that was the exact opposite of her own. Most players at 30 in the world would pack their bags and start thinking about Wimbledon draw scenarios. Ayala stayed. She watched. She figured something out. And if you think that doesn't matter, you haven't been paying attention to how careers are actually built. Osaka, for her part, is a different conversation entirely. What she did in Bad Homburg was more than just winning a second-round match at a WTA 500 event. The context matters enormously here. She is coming back from one of the more complicated returns to professional sport we have seen in recent memory. The mental health battles she was public about, the time away, the pregnancy, the return through Auckland, the slow climb back into the top 20. None of that is easy, and none of it happens in a straight line. There are days when a former world number one who is rebuilding can look like a former world number one. And there are days when she still looks like she is searching for something. What we saw in Bad Homburg was not the searching version. What we saw was the version that makes you remember why she won 4 Grand Slams in the first place. The serve was dominant. The returns were early and flat. The movement on grass, a surface she has historically been complicated about, looked comfortable, purposeful, controlled. She wasn't grinding through that match. She wasn't surviving it. She was running it. 8 aces. 78% first serve points won. 5 of 7 break point conversions. Those are the stats of a player who has found her game at exactly the right moment, 2 weeks before Wimbledon. The question now, the one everyone in Bad Homburg and watching from home is asking, is whether this is a peak or a starting point. Whether Osaka can carry this form through the quarterfinals and beyond, whether she can do what she did to Mertens to the next player, and the one after that. Whether the grass is finally clicking for her in a way it hasn't consistently done since that 2021 Wimbledon run. The answer to that question is above my pay grade. But what I do know is that the tennis world now has 2 stories to follow going into Wimbledon. The first is Naomi Osaka, back and dangerous, making statements, playing the kind of tennis that reminded an entire stadium why she used to be the most feared player in the world. The second is Ayala, sitting in a player's lounge in Germany, watching, learning, absorbing, and quietly building towards something. She is seated at Wimbledon for the first time. The first Filipino ever to earn that honor. She has a blueprint now, handed to her not by a coach or a match analyst or a video session, but by Naomi Osaka herself on a floodlit grass court at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday night in northern Germany. She will go into the All England club with a different understanding of herself. She knows what she did wrong against Mertens. She knows what she needs to do differently. She has already seen it done. And if the Berlin Open showed us anything about Alex Ayala, it's that she doesn't forget. She processes, she adapts, and then she goes out and does it. Bad Homburg gave us a lot of things. It gave us a dominant Osaka performance that sent a genuine chill through the Wimbledon draw. It gave us a Mertens defeat that reminded everyone how unforgiving grass can be even for the most consistent players on tour. It gave us a scoreline of 6-2, 6-3 in an hour and 18 minutes that will be talked about in pre-Wimbledon preview pieces for the next 2 weeks. But the image that stays with me from that night isn't the final forehand winner kissing the sideline. It isn't Mertens's racket dropping. It isn't the roar of 5,000 people in a small city in Germany reacting to something they didn't expect to see. The image that stays with me is Alex Ayala, sitting in that empty players' lounge, still in her practice gear, watching through the window as the lights on center court slowly went dark. Watching, thinking, and already planning her next move.